Oh, sorry this is late. I was fighting with my computer to get this thing set up. Anyway, fall trailer routine here. I'm actually in Las Vegas. Um, this next week is the Super Senior Classic at Sandtown, and then the week after is the Senior Masters. Um, so, waiting for people to ask me questions. There are some questions here. Okay. Yes, so somebody, John Williams asked, Open Championships, I always wonder what a team advantage a pro or having a sponsor gives that bowler that we've seen have to fly with limited equipment. How often after day one does a pro have new equipment drilled to a shot of the tee? Okay, so in the Open Championship, they have different patterns. So most guys are going to bring stuff. They might drill stuff at the tournament site. There are some booths at the company, but it's not necessarily it's not the same thing as being on tour, where they'll have guys that are the ball reps and stuff like that. They'll do test stuff, but I think any professional is going to have a slight advantage over other players just because he's probably a better bowler. When I go to the Open Championship, I very seldom drill stuff, but on occasion I have. So here, a question. To almost everyone who has bowled before 2010, two-handed delivery of the ball does not look like bowling. I'm not sure why you think that, but okay. I'm not asking whether you agree or disagree with it. You're saying you think it's a fact. That's not a fact. That's your opinion. My actual question is, when two-handed started showing up, why was there seemingly never any actual debate over it? I think there's always been debate over it. A lot of traditional bowlers don't like it, and I think the reason why is because bowling one-handed is a lot more. It takes a lot longer to learn how to hook the ball one-handed than it does two-handed. Two-handed, it's like you can almost instantly hook the ball. However, with lane conditions being the way they are these days, this two-handed hooking delivery allows you to get more. Allows you to take advantage of lane conditions out there. If lane conditions were flat-footed, I don't think you'd see very many two-handed bowlers. But the house shots allow the hook to get better so much quicker, if that makes any sense. Brian Voss wrote an essay on it, which some people agree, some disagree, but there was never actually large scale. Well, I disagree with you. There has been, and there are some people who don't think it's legal, and there's other people who say it. To me, it's a person throwing a ball. If you can kick the ball down the lane and do good with it, you should be able to do that too. It's your body throwing the ball. What I find interesting is bowling, originally there were no holes in a bowling ball. How did you throw the ball? You didn't put your hand in the ball because there were no holes. So they had to palm the ball. I actually found a trophy that was probably 1920 that has a guy bowling two-handed. So it's not like it wasn't done before. And like I said, so back to the original days when they had wooden bowling balls and there was no holes in it, there were probably two-handed bowlers. Same as back then, they didn't how much oil was on the lanes and stuff, and oil originally was made to protect the lane surface. Now it does more than that. So I think it has more to do with lane conditions and stuff like that than anything else. But I disagree with your assumption that it doesn't look like bowling. It may just be that we've been taught to do it wrong. Let me see. What do you throw 15 and 14? I do throw 15 pounds. I would think you're going to have a little better carry with a heavier ball. 16 pounds, I don't know that 16 pounds is necessary. Back in the 50s, before that, they threw the ball fairly straight, so you wanted a heavy ball to drive to the pin. and so it was a lot more prudent to have the heavyweight. Nowadays, with the amount of hooks players have, even myself, I don't hook the ball excessive amount. I hook the ball a lot less than most of the guys. I've been using 15 since the 90s, and I was player of the year several times after that on the regular tour. So I don't think 15 is that big of a problem, but 14, a little bit different. You lose a little bit more of that. How do you prepare for tournaments now compared to when you were on regular tour in the punch? Taylor going about it. I'm much older now. I'm 65. Unfortunately, this year has been a little bit different. I actually hurt my shoulder back in December, and I could still bowl, but I knew, it wasn't quite right. And then finally in February, middle of February, bowling league at the end of the night, my shoulder threw a shot, and it really, really, really hurt. Oh my, it's not good. So, I haven't really been practicing a whole lot this year. I did get a cortisone shot back in February, and I didn't bowl for about a week, and then after the cortisone shot, I was able to bowl. I had both regional tournaments in March. Had a couple that were not so good. Actually, one of them was in February. But I did manage to bowl decent in several of them, and I was bowling most of the tournaments, but I wasn't doing a lot of practice. I was bowling leagues, and that was about it. So back in the day when I was on tour, I didn't really practice an excessive amount when I was bowling well. When a tour was off, I wouldn't practice at all until about a week before the tour started, and then I would practice about an hour a day for about a week, and then go to tournaments. And to me, that was the best practice, was bowling tournaments. It was a lot of games and stuff. I was probably averaging 40, 50 games a week, and a lot of that in competition. So that was a lot of bowling, as long as I was bowling decent. You get one of my jersey signs. Yeah. So the new ones, I don't have those available yet. I think you can order them on Coolwick, but as far as ordering those on my website and getting an autograph on them, it's a little more challenging. But my plan is to be able to do that. I haven't set that up yet. Good luck in safe travel. Let's see. Between 1980 to 14, I've actually been in major companies from maybe 6. Did you work with a coach? I've never really worked with a coach. I've had a couple of people help me a little bit, but it was I was pretty much self-taught watching the guys bowl and stuff. So really didn't have a lot of coach. So basically, 1980, I wasn't on tour, even though they listed me in the program book as being a PVA member. Being a PVA member doesn't mean you went on tour, because at that time there was about 3,000 PVA members, and there was about 150 that were bowling on tour. So I was still in college. I didn't finish my education until 83 or 82, and in 83 I went on tour full time, and I managed to make more than I spent, so I stayed out on tour, and I was an exempt player, and then started bowling better. I think basically you learn things, and just basically, after a few years, I kind of figured out, I'm making the finals and stuff, and then I wasn't doing very well in the finals part of the tournament, and I kind of looked at myself and I said, I need to bowl in the match play like I did in qualifying, and I went from 1985 where I think I made 14 match play tournaments, and then the next year I made 16. But the difference was I made one TV show, and in 85 and 86 I made 9. So it was kind of doing a little bit more, trying to take match play more like I did in qualifying, kind of approach it that way. I'm not sure, that was horrible what I was doing, but so let's see. Are you bowling the senior US Open Relay? I haven't signed up for, but I'm planning to bowl. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm having shoulder issues. I actually kind of missed on that, but I had a cortisone shot back in February, and then when I was getting ready to go out on the senior tour, I finally saw my doctor again, and I had an MRI taken, and after the MRI, my private doctor personal doctor. He thought that I should have shoulder replacement. I'm like, wow, I didn't get that bad, but because I was bowling and stuff, I could bowling didn't really bother my shoulder that much, even though that may have been the cause of the issue. I have a couple of tears in my shoulders, the tendons, and so I saw a specialist, and the specialist thought, I didn't really need to do that, and I actually got another cortisone shot in my shoulders to help it, because I figured, well, I'd like to bowl with swing, just, and hopefully get some sort of surgery if I needed that after the senior tour, which finishes in August. And he's like, yeah, I wouldn't want to operate on you until 6 months at least or so. And I said, well, I'm gonna go see another specialist up in Ohio that Tom Carter recommended, and so I bowled the first 3 tournaments. Unfortunately, I bowled really bad most of the other tournaments. I did manage to cash in the super senior part of the cash in the first tournament. The other 2 I didn't even cash in that part, which is pretty disappointing for me. That's my worst stretch of bowling here on the TV tour, and obviously very disappointed about that. I really can't blame it on the bowling, on my shoulders, except for that I haven't really practiced the test amount. But so we'll see what happens this week. I did really practice when I was in Virginia last week, but after the tournament was done. But saw a couple things maybe. But the thing is, I haven't really worked on it since then. So I can use bowl at a few. So you switch between 200 and 100 time to time, wondering what factors made you decide to try. Well, unfortunately, because of the bowling so bad, I would try 2-handed. And even though I'm not bowling great 2-handed, a lot of the couple tournaments I did more than 2-handed bowling, I might have scored better 2-handed than I did 1-handed. So it's really, a frustration thing that I'm just not throwing the ball as well as I need to. And I getting so frustrated. So I got to try something else. At this point in my career, what do you value more, the result of bowling or the process of bowling? Well, I think results are definitely a big part of it. I enjoy competition. I still do it. I know I'm getting close to not competing full time on the senior tour. Might be this year. I was actually kind of thinking that might be the case anyway. But like I said, I probably still will compete tournaments. I just don't know how much of it's full time or not after this year, but it also depends on. So I guess I should finish the thought on the other thing about my shoulder. I did see that second doctor, and he thought, well, yeah, you do have tears. I don't think it's quite as drastic. And I told him, I said, if you told me not to bowl, I wouldn't bowl. But he said, so you definitely want to bowl, and it's not too detrimental. He said, so we actually set up a date for after August, after the tournament was finished, for me to have him do scope surgery on me, where he can go in and hopefully fix those tendons, and after a few months, then I can start bowling again. What is my ball speed? I get that question all the time. It really depends. Probably when I let go, it's probably about 16 miles an hour, maybe 17, and then it's going to slow down 2 or 3 miles an hour before it gets to that point where it measures the ball speed. So usually around there, it's going to be, it used to be about 15 and a half, maybe 16 when I was throwing it hard. It might be 17, but that's rare, and nowadays I don't throw it that hard. So now it's like 14 and a half, 14 miles an hour, and then when I try to hook the ball, it's 15 slower than that, so I'm down to 13 miles an hour, maybe slower. Two-handed, maybe a touch slower than my one-handed speed. Have I ever thrown SPI? No, only a little bit. They really haven't been interested in me being on this path. So, do you have favorite bowling balls? I have a few bowling balls that I kept that are in my garage that are kind of special, but not necessarily for the reasons you think. So, hope I'm doing well. Well, I'm doing okay. Mr. Lee, how are you doing? Let's see, are you scheduled to be in Houston, Texas? Not at this moment. They have a double tournament in Houston in September that I bowled the last 7 or 8 years, and unfortunately the last when I bowled in December in Houston was when I kind of hurt my shoulder. So I'm, um, I'm not sure I'll be able to bowl it because I'm planning to get surgery, sometime in August. I don't know if I'll be ready to bowl tournaments, but I probably will. What do you, let's see, what do you think about things? Since I personally don't like them, what do you think? Have you bowled on them, Brian? There's a difference between things, and they're not perfect, but would you rather have no bowling or would you rather have sprinting? That's that's kind of what's going to happen in the years to come. Bowling centers, I'm assuming you're not a bowling center owner. When you're on that side of the table, and I'm not a bowling center owner or anything like that, but um, the expenses and stuff, and then basically I think the other bigger part of this mechanics, being mechanics that work on a machine instead of the free fall pins and stuff. It's hard to find good mechanics these days, and most of those machines are very very old. And they just need a lot of repair, and parts to get them are not simple. It's tough to get the parts. So, have I ever tried bowling using the cold roller type at least when you use one of these? I never really tried using the cold roller. I'm not sure I could even throw a cold roller. So, but there are times where I can throw a little straighter, but I don't do that very often. Even when the lanes hook a lot, it's like that's just not a strategy that I have. So that's going to be PGA 60 Player Year from last year. Well, thank you. I was pretty fortunate. I had a decent season, but it really wasn't very good in my opinion, basically because I'm used to doing a little bit better kind of thing. But Parker Bowling had a better season. He just didn't bowl as many tournaments, so I have to thank Parker Bowling for not bowling as much. Do you think the move to the PWS will be okay? I hope so. I don't know. I don't go on tour anymore. I mean, unfortunately, TV and bowling. I mean, without TV, the bowling tour is going to be very tough to be super successful. But the one downside of Foxport shows all over the place. PW will be the same time 10 weeks around. If it's on the same time every week, that's big. But 10 weeks is really not that much. I mean, back when I was on ABC, it was 16 weeks, and then there was 8 weeks in the spring, and then we had tournaments in the summer. And just a second. My wife. Hello. I'm doing one of my Q&A. I'll talk to you later. Love you. All right. Bye. She's actually flying. I'm guessing. I'm hoping that she was able to leave, but she was flying from Orlando to Dallas, and then Dallas to Denver. Unfortunately, I had a little trouble getting here to Las Vegas. My van broke down outside of in Colorado, and we decided it was best that I drive back to Denver, fly out of Denver, and she was going to drop, instead of flying here, she's supposed to fly here today. And so now she's on her way to Denver and pick up the van, which was supposed to be fixed today and be ready tomorrow. Unfortunately, the part isn't supposed to get in until Thursday, so she's on her way to Denver and going to be out there for the next day and drive from Colorado down here. So hopefully she's doing okay, and that was her just landing in Dallas and getting ready to go forward. So, do you ever have any problems? Yes. Back in 1999, I was bowling a tournament in New Jersey, and it was an unusual format. It was like a cut, and then another cut to the top 32, and then the top 16, and I was leading with 16 minutes to go, and the top 16 advanced, and all of a sudden my knee started it's like somebody was stabbing my left knee with a knife, and I ended up finishing 16th on the time. And so for the next few weeks I was struggling with that, and then finally one of the other boys my family suggested I get a knee brace, and I did that, and it helped. And over the years, over the next few years, I had issues at times where my knee was hurting quite a bit, but it was never, I never had to have surgery on it. And I still wear a similar type of knee brace, that, helps stabilize my kneecap and gives it a little extra stability. But now I can probably bowl without it with no problem, but it doesn't bother me to use the knee brace. Um, what runs with the best all around ball out now? Well, everybody likes different things. I'm kind of, when it first came out, last year they had the Mesmerize and the Vaporize, and I liked the Mesmerize first, and then I got to liking the Vaporize, and now the Vaporize is kind of my favorite ball. I know they come up with some other ones, but I'm tough to shift to new stuff. I'm not big on really new bowling balls and stuff. As to TBAs and Fox Sports to the kid store, what do you think is the TV next to me to their TV? Well, they really got a TV deal. That's awesome. And so I mean, they've got a deal. I don't know if it's better than the Fox deal or not, but they do have a deal on CW. So, what about Horseshoe says that bothers shoulder? Well, oddly enough, I think Horseshoe's left-handed these days. My shoulder, I don't know if my shoulder bothered me pitching Horseshoe right-handed or not, because I really haven't pitched right-handed since my shoulder issue first. I had some tournaments a long time ago when I was young. I broke my finger, and so I learned how to play left-handed. And later on, years later, when I was 18, I broke my wrist, and again I learned how to play left-handed. And I was actually practicing, and I'm like, you know what? They have a horseshoe tournament. I want to go to it. So I went to the horseshoe tournament with a cast on the right hand, and pitching left-handed. And my very first tournament left-handed, I had 47%, which is, if you play competitive horseshoe, is pretty decent. It's not great, but it's pretty decent. Back then I was like 85% right-handed. So that's a big difference between 85% and 47%. So I would play tournaments off and on, and after my wrist was better, and I would probably average 50-55%. I think I creeped up in the high 50s a couple of times at tournaments, but I didn't really put a lot of serious practice into it. Unfortunately, over the years, my average came down, and then finally I had a couple of years back to back at the World Tournament where my average was under 70%, which for me was at that time was just absolutely awful, and I was not having a lot of fun. And I was, you know what? I think if I pitch left-handed, I may be able to pitch as well with left-handed, because I was like 69%. And I feel like getting 60s if I practice. If I pitch all the time left-handed, I think I'd probably get to that spot left-handed. And then the next 2 years, I actually pitched at the World Tournament left-handed, and I averaged over 70%, and even finished second place in the Munich Championship. There was a couple of top players that went there, but I didn't even finish second place, which was kind of impressive, but it was also kind of sad that I was able to pitch better left-handed than right-handed. And then over the years, I was off and on left-handed, right-handed. I get frustrated. I go back to right-handed, back to left-handed, back to right-handed, back to left-handed. Last fall, I got home from the World Tournament about a month or so, and I was practicing, and I was not doing very well left-handed, so I thought, let me try right-handed again. So I went to a couple tournaments, and I had two of basically my worst tournaments ever playing right-handed. So I went back to left-handed. And I actually had a really good tournament about 2 months ago, but it was kind of one day thing, and then I kind of went back to not pitching as well as I liked, even though, and for me it's different, my expectations are a little higher. I'm about 65%, depends, but I had a 73% tournament, which is pretty good. I was pretty excited about that, but then like the next tournament was like in the 60s and stuff, so at the state tournament I averaged 58% one day and 60%, and then 66% for the championship, which I thought was pretty decent, but then all of a sudden it was practice at home, and it's like back down again. So I actually entered the World Tournament this year in the senior men's division. So I thought I could average 70%. I was playing in the men's division, but my pitching is so sporadic and so just not as consistent as I like to be. But like I said, I won the Florida State Men's Championship playing left-handed, so it's pretty decent. But for me, it's nothing compared to what I used to do. Have you ever been into knowing a bowling center post-up? I have. Unfortunately, things just haven't worked out that way. How old is that mustache? Um, it's pretty old. I keep trimming it, so, and obviously it's gray, so it's white now. If I have a beard, my beard is practically all white, so, but it's 765. Let's see. Do you travel to bowl most of the TV 60 stories to your own? Well, my wife's going to be here for the next couple of weeks, and then after that, she's going to go back home. She might come out to another tournament too. And I've got some guys that I'm kind of talking with, share house with or something like that. But I'd probably travel by myself, but I stay with some guys at different tournaments. I'll be bowling the USCC senior matches for the first time. It would be good to bowl. It would be good to bowl with you. I guess you missed it. Last time I was able to talk to you in person was about 35 years ago. Well, you can say hi to me. I get lots of people talking to me all the time. And good luck. You were one of my favorite symbols. I just was watching 98 TV National Finance Championship the other day. Maybe I won that tournament. Remember, it's very hard to hear you. I'm sorry. I don't know why it would be hard to hear you. I guess you turn your volume up. We'll see you in Colorado. That's fine. What was your most prestigious tournament of the year? I know you wanted to win the one before. The U.S. Open was kind of especially in later years, when the wind conditions were really challenging. So and I like the format in it. If you can throw horseshoes left-handed, you can bowl left-handed. If I can throw the ball left-handed, I have the timing down, but I don't bowl for competition. I don't bowl for sport. I think that's, I'm guessing, I'd probably average about 150. I throw shots left-handed, but I don't really practice left-handed. You know, after my shoulder surgery, I might actually bowl left-handed. I don't know. I've never really put the time into it because, like I said, in years past when I would practice or when I was at home and the clothes off, I really wouldn't practice much. So, but in horseshoe, we're sitting at a horseshoe course in my backyard. I could go practice that all the time. So it was a little different with bowling. I don't own a bowling center, and even though most places were pretty generous and letting you practice nowadays, it's not as much. So the idea of going to practice left-handed just doesn't really intrigue me. If I had a place to practice and it's cost all up, yeah, I'd probably practice left-handed. I think I could probably average 200 on a house shot, but that's not good enough to compete out here. The bowl lesson I have, it's not in competition. Like you bowling 250 stops in Vegas. I'm here in Vegas. I know you don't like the match play, but don't you think the matches should be justified instead of best of three? I think more matches is better, more games is better. I always thought it was kind of odd that in bowling, the most important matches were one game. You don't see that in other sports. When you have a World Series, they don't have one game. They have 4 or 7. So it's I know it's a different thing, but I always thought it was ironic, or not ironic, but backwards, the way we did bowling tournaments. So we would have more games in the earlier rounds, and the later rounds would be less games. To me, it's kind of backwards. But I just don't like elimination match play. I think it's a poor way to run a tournament because you're not bowling everybody. You're only bowling one person at a time. You might bowl three or four guys to make a TV show. And senior masters and masters for me, you got more matches than that, but it's still a lot. It's just a lot more luck going into it. I've managed to win a couple of those events, and a couple of those I bowled very, very well, and didn't get the results. And other times I bowled decent and got really good results. So even the DJ Tactics for Ice and Jason Vermont to the total over the last 4 years. Well, DJ Tactics has been a great bowler for the last 10 years. So, and obviously Jason's been a great bowler for the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years. He's only been on tour, 15 years or, 16 or 17 years now. It's hard to say. I mean, Jason, he's been so dominant. I never really looked at him like, oh my God, you're really, really struggling. And I think For a long stretch, I was in the top five almost every year. And, the years I was definitely years I was out of the top five, I thought were not very good years. But if I was, sometimes things just happen, if you don't win tournaments or whatever. But for me, it was the better gauge was how many times I was making a TV show at the end of the season. That to me was a better gauge of how well I was bowling, because you can win tournaments, when you're not bowling as well, and you can not win tournaments when you're bowling really well. Again, it's the way they have the tournament. Will you become a striker to Spring Hill? Probably not. I think the schedule for that tournament is not going to work out for me, but I need to look at it a little better. First in bowl in Beaumont, Texas. I've watched the bowling videos for a long time. Watched Coolwick, yes, great sports people to be still skydive. I don't skydive. I don't know why you think I did that. I have been to Beaumont, Texas. Bowled there a couple of times. Not very often. I lived in California. I lived in Florida. Your first 300 on TV, what was the TV like? Well, when I get one, I'll let you know. I haven't had one yet. I've had 4 bowls this year on TV, but I haven't. My best team on TV was 299. You like pin up or pin down? I would say most of my pins are going to be above the standard. After you sold it, so that helped with 200 bowling. I don't know, Mark. I got. Hopefully, I'll still be able to bowl. That's kind of Q1 right now. Right, you're still bowling as much as you can, but you can win at least 1, 2, 6 penalties, plus the flexibility. Well, unfortunately, so my bowling's not very good this year. Right now, I need to start cashing and stuff like that. The guys that are really good on the senior tour are really good, and the last tournament I bowled in, I didn't have his 200, and I think John Janowicz averaged 240 something, and I'm like, I just don't get it. I'd like to think I have some clue about what's going on, and I'm not seeing it at all, and my ball is just not seeing it, and I'm throwing the ball from bad places, and when I throw decent shots, they're not working, and obviously I'm throwing too many bad shots, and I know that. But thank you. If I could win a tournament, that would be unbelievable. But I'm trying to think the last time I won. I think it's been over 5 years since I won here on the senior tour. When releasing the bowling ball, should I complete my slide before releasing the ball at the lane, or release the ball as I slide? I don't really concentrate on that, but basically I'm sliding while I'm releasing the ball, or right at the finish of releasing the ball when I let go of the ball. Honestly, I have to look at a video to let you know for sure. I don't really worry about that. What I find, because I do a few clinics and stuff, and I find a lot more bowlers these days who do not slide. And so, got a message from my wife. So I guess maybe she's staying around in Dallas. Let's see. So, but I see more people, not more people, but I see a lot of people who don't slide, and that I don't understand. Which is odd, because when I bowl left-handed, and I don't change my shoe, and I don't slide with my right shoe because it doesn't let me slide. But when I bowl right-handed, if I did that, I would fall over. So, actually, I had a tournament a few weeks ago. The coaches were very tacky for me, and for whatever reason, I usually am pretty good even on tacky approaches, and for whatever reason, the combination of the shoe fault that I had just wasn't working very well. And the year before, I had pulled a groin muscle, and I didn't want to re-pull it, so I decided to just basically stand at the line and throw the ball for a couple of games. To me, that's why they give you bowling shoes is to slide. Unfortunately, some of the bowling shoes they give you to slide aren't as good as they used to be. And some of the approaches are not as slippery as they used to be. So, how's it going? Is it higher friction from what you remember? I don't remember that kind of stuff. I'm sorry. I mean, it's lane conditions. You go out and if it hooks, you gotta make the adjustments there, and if it doesn't, you put. And last year at the tournament, I didn't bowl very well at the senior masters and the super senior classic, but they had a couple of sweepers, and I did really well on those. And then I bowled the tournament, but it was on different patterns. So the patterns I had in sweepers were to my liking for some reason. I'd say WRW for procedure commission. What do you say? I'd be okay with that. I don't know that some of the bowlers would like that. I don't know. I but the problem is that the commission opens to do a lot of other things, and I might not be so good at some of those things. How did Danny Wiseman look? Well, he bowled the tournaments in Florida. He bowled pretty well in the one regional or the one side tournament, and then he bowled okay at the other tournament. But he, I don't know, he looks fine. He's getting older like the rest of us. See you in Vegas. All right, Joe. Sounds good. Travel safe. Currently, my wife is having some issues getting to the West Coast, but her flight was delayed a lot today, and she's supposed to arrive in Denver, but I think her flight was delayed enough that she's in Dallas, and I don't know. I thought she was going to get on a later flight, but maybe she's going to. Sounds like the message I got sounds like she might be spending the night there. So. Anyway, don't see any of the messages, so I'll often change it. I just go through things. I actually stopped and practiced some horseshoes and tequila changes. And I guess I played a horseshoe tournament there years and years and years ago. It's pretty funny. It's a big park, and I knew they had horseshoe courts there. And I'm looking for them, and the park, like I said, the park's huge, and so I'm looking all over the place for them, and I had to go to the bathroom, and I went to the bathroom, and I turned around, there's the horseshoe court. I'm like, oh, okay. Other plans on bowling tournaments in the Midwest. Well, we've got tournaments in Hammond, Indiana. I don't know if they call that the Midwest. I always thought the Midwest, kind of weird. To me, I think they call the Midwest like Indiana, Illinois. I think even Ohio sometimes called the Midwest, which is kind of strange to me. It's all East because I'm from California, So, but not any coming west of Chicago. I think we're going to have a regional tournament in Arlington Heights. If Fancy's going to Vegas, she's trying to. Tom's already doing okay this resort. I would say if you ask Tom, I would bet he would say he's not doing as well as he had liked. Lane conditions are slightly different on the senior tour, and the first couple weeks the formats probably weren't very good for him. It was limited to match play, and I think Tom Agsock needs to beat him a couple times. Tom's a great bowler. Like I said, there's plenty of good bowlers out here on the senior tour. But when you start bowling match play, matches, it's not as easy as you think. There's so many good bowlers out here, and the guys that are managed to win a lot of those, kudos to them. And then Tom just missed the step ladders last week. He missed by 110, and I was really surprised because his still ball. I know missed by 2 things. I'm sorry, but his still ball, he just threw the ball down the middle, and I'm like, do you not realize what the score is? He ended up getting 9, and if he just struck, it would have forced Tom Hess needed to get 19, I think, in the 10th frame, and he went solid 10, and then he needed 9, he was spare, and then he needed 9, and Tom Hess finished after Tom Doherty did, and then Tom Hess threw a strike on a still ball. If he gets an 8 count, they would have been tied, and they would have had a roll off. So it wasn't, it was just an odd thing to see him doing that. I'm almost thinking he didn't know what the score was. Is the PA doing a legend bowling event mixed with the younger bowlers this season in classes? Apparently not. Because last year they did it in March, so my guess is they're not doing it. And they haven't asked me about doing it. Of course, they may not ask me to do it. What part of California are you from? I was born in San Jose. We were basically around the San Jose area for the first years of my life, and then when I was 5, we moved up to Southern Oregon, lived there for a couple of years, and then we moved to Eureka, California, which is about 100 miles south of the Oregon border on the coast, and it's a very cool climate, and and it doesn't get very warm there at all, and it doesn't get excessively cold. I think it snowed one year that we lived there, so I basically figure I grew up in Eureka. So I was in third grade to 10th grade there. So I started playing horseshoes. I used to bowl one year and leave there when I was 11. Um, but Eureka's, nice little town, middle of nowhere. Not really middle of nowhere, but it kind of is. It's like 250 miles north of San Francisco, and it's probably the biggest town for, I don't know, 100 miles in any direction. Um, but it's a little challenging to get to. It's a very pretty area, a lot of big trees. That's where the redwood trees are at. Um, when I was a kid, I liked it. I don't think I'd want to live there now. It'd be too cold for me. Then we moved to Auburn, which is near Sacramento. The temperature is totally different there. Where in Eureka, the average high in August is 65. In Auburn, the average high in the summertime is like 98 degrees during the day, for the daytime. In the wintertime, it does snow. It probably snows once or twice a year. And then I lived in Southern California, and when I moved down there, I was like, oh man, this is nice. 70 degrees in January. That's like, wow, this is awesome. I ended up moving up to Stockton, where I met my ex-wife. She went to school there, and then we moved out to Florida. I like the warmer weather now. So let's see. What part of California do you from? Do you like shorter patterns or longer patterns? I like to play the outside part of the lane. Unfortunately, most longer patterns aren't designed to play outside. But I can bowl pretty decent on longer, at least I used to. But these days, I haven't bowled very well on anything. Brian Barnes, Wayne Jordan, what do you think of these young guys? They're very good bowlers. I don't know as much about Jordan, but Ryan, I've seen him up close in person, bowled against him in the doubles tournament the last couple of years in Houston. Obviously, he's got a couple parents that know a lot about bowling. And then Ethan and I bowl with Ethan down in Florida. I keep meaning to repost the video. You can go back and look at old videos and stuff where I've bowled against local tournaments. He's bowling against Ethan, and he's a very good bowler. What do you think about no cap tournaments? They're not, that's not what I normally do. I bowl in them, but it's not a tournament that I really want to go to. What do you have a regular to say bowling tip? Save off bowling easy. Well, unfortunately, I don't have I don't really exercise very much. I need to do some stretching. I need to do some more exercise and stuff. I'm not horribly out of shape, but I'm not as in good shape as I need to be. Again, I'm 65, so do I have any children? And I also, as far as bowling injuries, I got a knee thing and I got my shoulder thing going on. So, do I have any grandchildren? No, I don't. So looking back over the years that you bowled, would you do anything different today? Probably would have started bowling two-handed a little sooner. When I first learned to do it, I didn't really put much practice into it. And then after a bunch of years, I finally said, maybe I can put a little practice into it. So, what do you think? I've already talked about that. Spring pin, it's not perfect. I'd like them to do better. But I think it's better than the alternative, which is no bowling center. So, like I said, I'm in Las Vegas, and they've got the Super Senior Classic tomorrow. They have a sweeper in the morning, and then a practice session in the afternoon, and I'm on 8 squad. We start competition Thursday morning. Friday afternoon, I'll be on the afternoon squad, and hopefully I can make a cut to cash and move on. But the last two tournaments I bowled were not very good. So, let's see. I currently work at Lifting Goodwill Industries in New Bern, Ohio. I'm planning to talk to a couple of friends of mine about bowling league at Park Lanes in Houston. I used to ride my bicycle working back. I'm glad Park Lanes. Whoa. I'm glad Park Lanes isn't there on state roads and lower roads, but I'm hoping that we get a bowling team for where I work at, playing ball. I'm trying to find out what this guy's asking. He's asking anything. I learned how to play 8 ball. My grandpa watched my mother bowl. Okay, well, I hope you get your lead and I hope you have fun with it. Um, can you describe the feel of hand adjustments between ball roll or activation as needed, please? I presume most myself, like others, to try to help the ball more than needed, and that's what that girl is kicking. Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I can do different things. The problem is when you do something different, you want to be able to repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. And unfortunately, I'm not as good at that these days. But learning how to throw the ball straighter, like you use pairs. And for me, my biggest tip to people is kind of try to throw a backup release, so come out of it this way instead of coming out of it this way. Um, but one thing I will do is when I do my clinics, I'll get an 8-pound ball, and then I'll show them how to roll the ball. You know, you don't put some of the ball and you roll it this way and get the ball to go this way. The more the ball goes this way, the more it's going to hook. The more the ball goes this way, the more it's going to go straight. So I think some people, it's an illusion. People think that a ball that rolls end over end is going to hook earlier. I think that's not really true. I think it's more that the guys that have the ball going this way, it makes a much bigger move when you finally get to the higher friction. So, but a lot of, unfortunately, feel like I'm trying to help it. So your elbow goes like this. You want to keep your elbow down and roll your wrist that way to get the ball. Kind of like a football release. If you have a football in your hand and you're going to toss a football in the hand and get a good spiral, that's similar to what you want to do in bowling. Unfortunately, it's very, very difficult to do that. Pete Weber probably does that the best of anybody. But the young players, they do things that I don't do. They call it a yo-yo release, so they want their wrist is really cupped and they come through it and do that. So it's just a different, there's lots of ways to do it. And then 2-minute, that's just, for me, it's a way to get a lot higher rev rate. For me, it's hard to get a lot higher rev rate because my wrist doesn't like doing those kinds of things. So, do you ever use urethane bowling balls on shorter or longer patterns if you use the surface on the urethane ball? I don't really do a lot with my surface with the urethane ball sometimes, but I do know that on the regular tour, guys would really put a lot of surface on the urethane ball, which I always thought was kind of strange because you're using a ball you don't want to hook as much, but they're putting all the surface on it. So I guess they want to hook early and not as much in the back end. So kind of read the pattern earlier. That's normally why guys are going to use urethane, especially on the big tour. These guys all put the ball a lot. And the urethane ball will read the pattern the first 30 or 40 feet more than the back part of the pattern. So on some of the shorter patterns with a lot of back end, the big hook that they throw, it's just a big wild hook. So a little more challenging to control. So a lot of guys go to urethane ball to do that. I do that once in a while, even though I don't hook the ball a lot, but there are times I use it. My problem is I just don't have the hands to use the urethane as much, but I've done it before. So just say hello and tell you you're awesome. Thank you, Dan. What's the best advice you can give to amateur bowlers who struggle with bowling? Well, if you're struggling with bowling, get some lessons and practice. That's going to help you a lot. How come some lanes seem to leave a lot more tension than others? That's kind of part of bowling. I haven't been to a bowling center. I haven't left a tension in it. That's part of being right-handed and bowling. But yeah, there are definitely some places that knock those tensions out a little bit easier than others. But I think that's in the way the pins are set up, the sideboards and all that stuff. What are your thoughts on spring pins? I guess you missed that. I'm okay with spring pins, but I think they could be better. I've kind of offered my suggestions, but so far they haven't really taken me up on it. I think the springs need to be a little thinner, but the reason why they're thick as there is because they don't want the springs to break, which makes perfect sense. So I think a thinner spring would be better, and I think a sensor to attach to kind of loosen the spring before the pin is moving, as opposed to when the pin moves, then it releases the spring. So I think that's split second where the spring is released, and they release pretty quick, but that slows the momentum down of the pin. So you don't get to fight the pin action with the spring pin. But I think if they could figure out how to do those two things, I think that would be a lot better. But there's also, there's recreation string pins, and then there's certified string pins. And function string pins are it's harder to strike on than regular free fall. So your average can be a little bit lower, which some people don't like. Um, for me, the last couple of times I bowled in spring camp, I haven't bowled very well. And it's funny because last year at the regional tournament, um, I won the regional tournament in spring camp, but that's really the only time I bowled very well on spring camp. So a lot of it had to do with, I bowled pretty well that week. So, thanks so much for the detail, Lance. It was an honor to get to roll a few frames with you at the Pro Am Galleon. Thanks. Yeah, the Galleon Woodhouse, one of the 6-year house we bowled in. The wood lanes tend to be a little bit different because they get worn surfaces, so you can have a lot more of a worn area. I mean, that happens on the synthetic lane, but I think it happens more on the wood lane. The pattern that I think it had more to do with the lane machine, where the lane machine really didn't oil the last few boards. And it was supposed to be an outside shot, but it didn't play like the normal outside shot. So if I was trying to play my normal game where I would go up the lane with it, I didn't like my reaction. So for me, I wanted to get my ball to get to that hook spot at 1-2 board at the end of the pattern, which is the 36 feet. So I ended up kind of moving left, slowing down, and trying to get around the ball and trying to hook it. And it worked all right for me. I ended up finishing third, one of my better tournaments of the year. But it was a very odd way the pattern reacted and stuff. But I don't know if the wood might have made a little difference, but I think it had to be more to do with the lane machine itself. This is the last good evening to you, sir. So it's been on almost an hour. Hopefully you guys are doing all right. Like I said, I'm down here bowling tournaments in Vegas. I need to bowl better than I have the last few weeks. It's been very frustrating for me. And then a little issue with my vehicle getting here. And it's still in Colorado. My wife is on her way to Colorado to pick it up and then drive it here. And hopefully she'll be here Thursday evening. So, all right. You guys take care and thanks.